My group will discuss how a focus on increasing sales volume without oversight into collections and proper controls on credit limit policies increase accounts receivable collections risk. We will highlight the risk implications and provide recommendations to assist the company in reducing its accounts receivable risk. To highlight the concerns about the sharp rise in accounts receivable, we will analyze data trends and controls and review anomalies by territory and salesperson. We will compare the data from 2023 and 2024. They had strong sales growth in 2024. Their sales increased by 18%, but the accounts receivable increased disproportionately by 45%. This significant increase raises several red flags, showing slower collection and or ineffective credit and collections policies. Territorial regions track the sales and accounts receivable. This chart compares weighted percentage growth in accounts receivable and revenue by territory between 2023 and 2024. What stands out is that revenue growth is steady and consistent across territories, typically ranging from 15 to 20%. In contrast, AR growth is significantly higher in every region, ranging from approximately 24% in the Northeast to nearly 60% in the Southeast. Because this is weighted, larger territories like California and Southeast carry more impact, and even there, AR is rising more than double the pace of revenue. This gap confirms that receivables are outpacing sales across the entire company, pointing to systemic collections risk rather than isolated issues. The sales employees had autonomy in setting credit policies, with high credit limits and a tendency not to adhere to existing policies, to facilitate sales for their own benefit. This chart shows the performance of each salesperson and the significant difference in the change in revenue versus the change in accounts receivable. Ideally, accounts receivable should grow at a similar rate. We observe multiple instances where accounts receivable has grown significantly above revenue, in some cases exceeding 100%. And if we look at the Southeast, two main offenders pop up, where there's Abigail Dillon and Scarlett Ross. Their receivables are almost doubled. In California, there's Liam Smith and Grace Lee having the same issue with way higher accounts receivable compared to revenue. And then in the Northeast, we have the same issue with Lucas Anderson and Charlotte Wilson. We observed high levels of accounts receivable in the last two quarters of 2023, but in early 2024, especially in Q2, write-offs jumped to $735,000 and returns spiked as well, indicating weak credit discipline and uncollectible sales. Although adjustments eased in Q3, Q4, the mid-year surge exposed high collections risk. With high returns throughout 2023 and 2024, there's an indication that salespeople are recording sales in the period to meet sales targets and then revising them out in the next quarter. This overstates revenue and exposes the company to negative cash flows. This also suggests that salespeople are pushing late-year sales to boost revenue, even to customers who cannot afford to pay. This leads to inflated accounts receivable balances that ultimately turn into write-offs and returns. With such aggressive sales, the pattern suggests that bonuses are based on sales volume rather than credit quality, exposing the company to higher financial risk.
In 2023, there were 81 such customers. By 2024, that number more than doubled to 175. We found that 127 customers who were new to 2024 had a balance of over $10,000 outside of procedures and standards set by the company. Every territory experienced an increase, but the largest jumps came from South Central, California, and Southwest. South Central alone more than tripled, rising from 11 customers to 40. These increases indicate that the growth in high balance customers is widespread, not limited to one region. The expansion of customers carrying large receivables helps explain why overall accounts receivable grew more than 15% in 2024, far outpacing revenue growth, and raises concerns about credit approvals and collection risk across the company. The current accounts receivable trends reveal several concerning implications and risk indicators. Notably, accounts receivable is territory specific and unevenly distributed, with each region showing drastic percentage changes when comparing the weighted averages from 2023 to 2024. This suggests that the accounts receivable issue was not systemic but localized, pointing to inconsistent practices across territories. Such variation raises the possibility of control gaps in how credit terms are applied, as territory-specific customer arrangements may be deviating from standard policy without formal oversight. Additionally, elevated collection risk emerges when outlier accounts, those with unusually high accounts receivable balances, are subject to consistent monitoring or review. Without centralized oversight, these accounts may contribute disproportionately to aging and potential write-offs, undermining overall receivables health. The current sales and credit approval structure reveals critical governance gaps and incentive misalignment that elevates accounts receivable risk. Sales managers hold dual authority to approve both new customers and their credit limits, creating a conflict of interest that prioritizes revenue generation over credit discipline. This decentralized oversight at the territory level fosters inconsistent credit practices, undermining enterprise-wide controls. Additionally, credit terms are often extended without formal approval. These unapproved arrangements weaken cash flow predictability and expose the organizations to elevated collection risk, especially when outlier accounts lack proper oversight and monitoring. To mitigate accounts receivable risk and strengthen financial controls, the organization should centralize credit oversight by forming an independent credit committee and standardizing the approval policy for all new customers. Incentives must also be realigned to prioritize cash flow, with bonus criteria based on collections rather than booked revenue, encouraging timely payments and discouraging volume-driven risk. Enforcing credit policy compliance is critical. Implementing EFP workflows to automatically hold orders that exceed approved credit limits will reinforce discipline. Additionally, monitoring and escalation protocols should be enhanced through weekly credit and collections review meetings, and together these measures will promote stronger governance, reduce exposure, and improve accounts receivable performance.